Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm Johan. This is my channel, Hardcore Spirituality. Well, it's not mine, it's ours, where we discuss spirituality and recovery. How's your heart today? Is your heart kind? How's your mind? Is your mind calm and clear? So the title of this video is, I'm shunned because I don't go to meetings every day, but I will not apologize for trusting in my Creator. Let's break it down. And so I have 33 years in a 12-step program, not consecutive. So my first time around was April of 1988 until September of 2001. I went back out, picked up, came back in 2004, came back in the sense as an alcoholic, I knew where I could get help from this book, the big book, and the 12 and 12. So I started to go to meetings again. And I started all over. Did you hear what I said? I started all over. After a period of time when I developed some discipline again by going to meetings and listening, I realized what was missing those 13 years. And it had to do with spirituality. It had to do with a thorough fourth step. You know, I kept things to myself. But I managed to stay sober by going to meetings every day, pretty much 2 times a day. You could do it that way without working the steps. Because it looks good to your family, you know, you're going to meetings every day. And you could make excuses for your continued bad behavior, inappropriate behavior, you know. Well, I'm human, I'm going to make mistakes. Or I've heard this a lot. You've heard it, I'm sure. And it's usually said with glee. Well, I'm Irish. You know how Irish people are. Or I'm German. You know how German people are. Or I'm Italian. You know how Italian people are. Or I'm human. I'm going to make mistakes. In other words, you make excuses for your inappropriate behavior and use these excuses to continue acting inappropriately with your friends and family. And then how you stay sober is you go to meetings every day and complain and whine about your wife, your husband, your kids, your stepkids, the boss, the neighbor, politicians, crazy drivers on the road. And these people that you whine and complain to will coddle you and say, well, these people just don't understand. Sounds to me like we're still blaming other people for the way we act. But I learned my lesson. I decided to do those steps thoroughly. And if you haven't watched my previous video, Is Fear or Lack of Faith, What I Learned from the AA Big Book, that'll explain pretty much what I'm going to get into in this video, because I don't live in fear anymore. I'm not hiding anything. I revealed to my sponsor, as thorough as I could, all the things that blocked me from being happy, joyous, and free when I made those 3 lists in the 4-step: the resentment list, the fear list, and the sex conduct list. I did it this time around. And I don't go to meetings every day. I don't go to meetings at all. Because I follow the instructions in this book. In this book, it tells us all we have is a daily reprieve, contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. You can look it up. Just Google AA. All we have is a daily reprieve. It'll take you to the page it's on and what it says. All we have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. So I maintain my condition every day through prayer, meditation, and self-examination. I'm not a fake spiritual person. I put in the work. I still put in the work. I want to read you something from this book, the big book, on page 68. Perhaps there is a better way. We think so. For we are now on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying upon God. In the 12 and 12 book, in step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. It talks about, in the beginning, we rely on our sponsor, or we rely on the AA group. In the beginning. I'll do a video on it. I don't rely on an AA group or AA meetings every day anymore, because I'm past step 2. For we are now on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying upon God. So I've done a thorough 4-step. I mentioned it in the last video. And then I continue with the rest of the program, and daily. I seek through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God as I understand God, praying only for the knowledge of His will for me and the power to carry it out. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. And I mentioned before. And what I'm about to say, I know you've heard it at meetings. People with time say, I don't meditate. Step 11 says, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. We trust infinite God rather than our finite selves. We are in the world to play the role He assigns, just to the extent that we think He would have us, and humbly rely on Him. Does He enable us to match calamity with serenity? Did you hear what I said? He enables us to match calamity with serenity. I've said in previous videos, AA meetings have become a social club to air dirty laundry, to complain about the wife, the husband, the kids, the stepkids, the employer, the neighbor, crazy drivers on the road, the lady in the supermarket that bumped you from behind with the cart. You know, calamity. We are in the world to play the role He assigns, just to the extent that we do as we think He would have us, and humbly rely on Him, capital H. Does He enable us to match calamity with serenity? We never apologize to anyone for depending on our Creator. And here is where I have a difference of a view. The difference between what I do every day at home and in my life versus people that go to meetings every day, sometimes too. All right? We never apologize to anyone for depending on our Creator. I don't depend on going to meetings every day. I'm past step 2. I rely on my Creator. Here's why I don't go to meetings every day. One of the reasons. What are meetings for? What are meetings for? When I came around in 1988, there were a lot of detoxes in the area and not many rehabs. You had to travel a distance to go to a rehab. But there were a lot of detoxes. 1988, I'm talking about how I was raised when I got to AA in 1988. So my sponsor was on a phone list. Somebody would call the AA hotline and say, I need help. I'm a drunk. I need help. That hotline would call people on the list and say, so-and-so just called us. He lives here. Here's his phone number. He's asking for help. Most of the time they were drunk. So my sponsor would call me, hey, we're going on a 12th step call. This doesn't happen anymore because rehabs do the work. But anyway, he would pick me up. We'd go to the place where the person lived that made the call. And half the time we got there, they changed their mind. They're drunk. Real drunk. Maybe they've been on a bender for 3 days. They're about to be kicked out of their house. Their family has had enough of their crap. They're going to lose their job. So they call for help. We didn't say to them, Well, you're drunk, call us when you're not. We didn't pull out this book and say, okay, like my sponsor didn't say to me, get your book out. We're going to read the first 3 steps to this person or talk about the first 3 steps. Drunks don't understand it. They don't comprehend it. Their mind is soaked with alcohol. Pretty much they called because they're in dire straits. Not because they're drunk out of their mind, but they're about to get kicked out of their house. Their wife is threatening to divorce them. Their employer says you're going to lose your job. They do not comprehend substance abuse addiction, all right? So you get there and they're drunk. Maybe they say, well, I changed my mind. Well, we didn't say, okay, see ya. Call us when you're sober. We talked to them. We had that conversation. Could you just tell us why you called in the first place? What's going on? What followed was an opportunity for us to say, in a general way, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. In a general way. You don't throw the book at them, and you don't shove anything down their throat. My first sponsor, he passed away since. I love that guy. He was thorough. No bullshit. If you shove something down the alcoholic's throat, he would say, they will throw it up. So we didn't shove stuff down their throat. We explained to them in a general way what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And a lot of times they'd say, okay, I'll go to the detox. You know, they made that call, and we went there to help. You know, on page 164 where it says, see to it that your relationship with God is right, that you obviously can't transmit something you haven't got. You just can't send anybody on a 12-step call to deal with a drunk. They have to have a little bit of intelligence and tact. Because if this person asks for help, even though they're saying now, when you get there, well, I changed my mind, you just keep going back. Why did you call in the first place? That's all we want to know. Why did you call in the first place? Usually you could reason with them. So they decide to go to a detox. And a lot of times, they were out of booze. And my sponsor would have to stop at a liquor store and get booze to give to them so they didn't go into withdrawals. This is why I mentioned in videos before, you don't try to quit on your own. You go into withdrawals. It's dangerous for your health. So we give them some booze and get them to the detox. The detox knows we're coming because we call them. We tell them, we're on a list. We got a call. We're bringing Mr. Jones in. Here's our names. Here's the phone number you could reach us at. In 1988, we didn't have cell phones. We had home phones with answer machines, right? Knock on the door. Okay, it's us. Here's Mr. Jones. We're on the contact list. What is that? Well, I think it was like 5 to 7 days after Mr. Jones detoxed, with medical supervision to get through to withdrawals and he was going to be released, we would get the call to pick him up. We were the contact number. Rehabs weren't in full force like they are now. So you could say that person's life was put in our hands. Which is why I said you just can't send anybody to a 12-step call. So then we get the call, Mr. Jones is ready to be released at 2 o'clock. In a lot of cases, they weren't able to go home right away. Because of all the crap they pulled being drunk. So they lived in our homes. I've had many drunks in that situation live in my home. So Mr. Jones comes to live in my home. Now what? Well, you got to go to meetings every day? No. No. You're going to teach them what this book says about recovering from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. That's what it's about. When I first came around, I didn't go to a rehab, okay? So what my sponsor would do is find meetings, and back in '88, in a 25 to 30 mile radius, there were only about 4 meetings a week. Now there's 4 meetings first thing in the morning. There's 4 meetings at lunchtime. There's 4 meetings at supper time. There's 4 meetings at night. But what my sponsor would do is he would find a meeting. 1 meeting a week we go to a step meeting. And he'd say, listen to what these people have to say about this step. Once a week we go to a speaker meeting. Listen to what this person has to say about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. So when I had drunks live in my home, I did the same thing. I said, we're going to a step meeting. It's on step 2, or it's on step 4, or it's on step 6. Listen to what these people have to say. That doesn't happen today. I think it's because of funding. There aren't detoxes. The detoxes are now in rehabs. So you go in, you go to a rehab, and you detox with medical supervision. Then you go through their program, which includes the steps, which includes counseling. The old days of working with drunks, like I said, going to detoxes, then vouching for them after they get out, having them live in our homes, those are over. Those days are over. And 9 out of 10 people that walk into a meeting, and it's rare that somebody new comes to meetings, they've been to a rehab. So it's not like you're working with what I call an active drunk. Those days are gone. If somebody comes to a meeting that's drunk, people tell them to sit down and shut up. They don't know anything. And, you got to go by the format now. A person comes in as drunk. They didn't go to a detox. They didn't go to a rehab. They're off the street drunk. I said this before. I don't know how it is where you live, but around here, when a newcomer comes in, they forego the format and talk about the first 3 steps. How about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now? Well, that's not part of the format. And so now they're going to rail against this person about the first 3 steps, which they probably don't understand anyway. And then if, while someone's talking, something resonates with the drunk person and they want to ask a question, they are told no crosstalk. No cross-talking. We don't do that. Am I right? You know I am. Most people go to rehabs now. So you're not going to get a call to take a drunk to a detox. You might get a call and take somebody to a rehab. They're in a rehab for so long, and most of them, when they get out, the danger is past, and they may not want to go to meetings. Every day. Can you still work with that person? You bet. You bet. Maybe they're not comfortable being in a room with a bunch of people they don't know. Are you going to say, well, that's too bad? Do you have the time to sit with them in their home and start talking about this book? And you relate to them how this book relates to you, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. Can you do that? No. I hear a lot of people with time now say, I don't want to work with these youngsters. They don't listen, is what they say. But the truth is, these people with time don't want to take the time to listen to the youngster. It's not that the youngster doesn't listen, it's that you don't listen. It's so ingrained in you. To use this new method of treating drunks. Don't drink, don't think, and go to meetings. Wait a minute. Don't think. Don't think. Think about that. You're being told don't drink, don't think, and go to meetings. Don't think. Yet there's a sign up there in the front that says think, think, think. Well, which is it? And if you have a question and you're a newcomer, when somebody says something that resonates with you and you have a question, there's no crosstalk. I mentioned in videos before, look it up. What is the recovery rate in AA today? Well, you're probably only going to get statistics from 2020, 2021, 2022. What are the recovery rates in AA today? What are the recovery rates for rehabs or halfway houses? Well, the recovery rate for AA has dropped from 75% back in the early days to about 2 or 3%. Because rehabs have taken over what we used to do. You know, when we were on that phone list to get a call, and you went there and talked to a drunk, and you took them to a detox, and you might have to give them booze. And then you were their contact when they came out of the detox, and their life was in your hands. It's not for everybody. To have someone's life in their hands. On page 164. Still you may say, but I will not have the benefit of contact with you who write this book. We cannot be sure. God will determine that. So you must remember that your real reliance is upon Him, capital H. He will show you how to create the fellowship you crave. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you could do each day for the man who is still sick, or the woman. Well, if you don't meditate, ask Him, capital H, in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. Is your own house in order? Go to my last video. Did you do those 3 lists thoroughly, what it says in the 4-step? Resentments, fears, and sex conduct. I'm going to tell you this. You know about 13-steppers? I'll just stick to guys. Guys that prey on and stalk newcomer girls, take advantage of them, are inappropriate with them. I'm going to say they didn't do the sex conduct list in their 4-step. Otherwise, they wouldn't be still acting like animals. Ask Him, capital H, in your morning meditation what you could do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, capital H. Well, is your relationship with God right? Explain it to me. Well, I go to meetings every day. Do you meditate? No, we don't meditate. There's a guy locally, with time, when he speaks at meetings, often he says, everybody loves me. There is a guy locally with time, when he shares, often in the middle of his sharing, he will say, everybody loves me. Who does that? I'll tell you who. A sick person grooming other people. A sick person grooming other people so that, you've heard it, if you go to that meeting every day, hundreds of times, if somebody says, hey, do you know George? Your response is, oh yeah, everybody loves him. You've been groomed to say it. And another thing that guy says, pretty much attached to everybody loves me, he says, when I speak, everybody listens. So you heard him say 100 times, everybody loves me. You heard him say 100 times, when I speak, everybody listens. If somebody you meet and you say, hey, do you know so-and-so? They'll say, oh yeah, everybody loves him. When he speaks, everybody listens. You've been groomed to say it. I call these people the group spokesperson because the group won't do anything without their say. He controls the conscious state of that group because everybody loves him. When he talks, everybody's quiet. I was at a meeting one time there. He was sharing. Somebody nudged me and pointed at my ear. And the room was full with like 30, 40 people. He's speaking. Somebody nudges me, points me at my ear. I say, what are you talking about? And they say, your ear's bleeding. Well, I happened to clip the hair on my ear the day before. There was a scab, and at the meeting I scratched it, and you know how an ear bleeds? Profusely. He stopped the meeting and said, I can't talk with those people talking. I said, somebody was just pointing out that my ear was bleeding profusely. Well, I have ADHD. I can't concentrate if you're talking. These are the people running AA. Supposedly it bothers him if somebody's talking, right? But yet, remember what I said? If somebody drunk is in the meeting or a newcomer, and something is said and it resonates with them, they're told, no cross-talking. Well, I wasn't cross-talking. Somebody was just telling me that my ear was bleeding profusely. I had blood all over my shirt. I didn't even know it. That's another reason I don't go to meetings. The first is the old way of working with drunks, those days are gone. Rehabs do it. I have nothing against rehabs. But that's popular now. There aren't as many detoxes. The detoxes are in rehabs. Nothing wrong with that. You should not try to get sober on your own at home. There's withdrawals and there are health problems that come with withdrawal. So people are going to rehabs. If the new way is we're not getting calls and going to visit active drunks who are drunk, maybe they decide they don't want to go, you talk to them because you're compassionate. You just can't send anybody to these drunks. You take them to a rehab or you take them to a detox the old way. You're the contact. When they're ready to get out, you get called, you pick them up, you're kind of responsible for them. Those days are gone. Very rarely does a newcomer come into a meeting, and if they do, they've been to a rehab. You can't approach them. You can't approach them the way we approached people before who had no knowledge of what's in this book. It's a whole new paradigm now. So if nobody is new coming to meetings, or they've already been treated in a rehab, are we discussing in meetings this? We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. This is on page XII. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. So if everybody there has been sober for a long time, what are we doing at meetings? Oh, we go to hear the guy that everybody loves. We go to hear the guy that, when he talks, everybody is quiet. And what it turns out to be is who has the best story for the day. I'll give you an example. This probably happened to you at a meeting. And from this example, you could probably think of more. So somebody comes in. Maybe they're new. Well, I just got out of county jail. I was there for 30 days. Well, somebody has to up that. Well, I was in state for 2 years. And somebody has to up that. Well, I was in federal for 5 years. It turns out to be what we called in the Marine Corps a pissing contest. It has nothing to do with recovering from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. I got way off track. But I'm shunned now because I don't go to meetings. I'm misunderstood too. When I talk about things that I talk about in these videos, these people that go to meetings every day look at me strangely. You know, like when you make a strange noise to a dog and they go like this? Because today, you gauge a person's spiritual condition by he goes to meetings every day. Everybody loves him. When he speaks, everybody's quiet. I don't want to associate with that narcissism and cult-like system. Back to page 68. We can laugh at those who think spirituality is the way of weakness. So because I don't go to meetings every day, I'm looked down upon. Weak even. But I could laugh at those people today who think what I do is a way of weakness. Paradoxically, it's the way of strength. They trust in their God. We never apologize for God. I will not apologize to people and say, I plan my day around a meeting with God, first thing in the morning, with God. I won't apologize for that. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. We let him demonstrate through us what he can do. I have demonstrated through God that if I've done a thorough fourth or fifth step, I'm no longer a baby in the 12-step program that, I rely on a sponsor every day or meetings every day, an AA group. I'm past step 2. I rely on God. I practice spiritual principles, and it doesn't make me weak. Paradoxically, I get strength from it. I don't have to go to a meeting and say, look at me. Aren't I a good person because I go to meetings every day? I don't have to. I don't have to. I do not have that ego anymore. I passed step 2. I rely on God. My daily focus is on conscious contact with God through prayer and meditation. So they could laugh. They could shun me all they want. Because who is really happy, joyous, and free? I'm free to live my life. To demonstrate what I just read to you, what God has done for me. The old method of being introduced to a drunk, you're on that phone list, you get a call, you go to their house, they're drunk. You can't control them like you do at meetings. No cross-talking. You gotta be a little bit smart to deal with an active drunk who made the call, and then you get there and they're saying, well, I don't think I want to go now. You say F you and leave. Those days are gone. I am not going to go to meetings for no reason other than to see who has the best story, who has the book memorized. And because rarely do newcomers come in, if you have 5, 10, and 20 people that go to meetings every day on a regular basis, I'd hope they could take care of that once in a while newcomer that walks in. I trust God. Practicing spirituality every day isn't a way of weakness. It's a way of strength. I don't answer to finite human beings. You could say I answer to an infinite God. Today I have a conscience. I've developed that sixth sense that it talks about in step 11. If I do something wrong, I know it. It rarely happens, but I know what I have to do. Sit down and think about what happened. Do I owe that person an amends? I go and make the amend, and then I sit somewhere, think about what happened, and ask myself, what could I have done differently in that situation? It's step 10, but it goes back to what I said in yesterday's video about step 4. And there it talks about fears. We put them on paper. We review them thoroughly. We ask ourselves why we had them. In step 4, you make a list of your sex conduct. Whom have you hurt? What could you have done differently instead? Because I've done those steps thoroughly, as honest as I could, and made amends, and I have a system in place where I practice prayer, meditation, and self-examination every day. I have a meeting every morning with God. I seek through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God. Because I'm focused on God and myself, I've developed a conscious, I've developed intuition, I've developed discernment. So if I act inappropriately, I know what I have to do. I have to set it right and figure out what could I have done differently so I don't do it again. And I don't have to report to anyone how I'm doing. I don't have that ego anymore. I'll see you in the next video, hopefully. Yo, on out. Peace.